They are enthusiastic. These are women who are middle-aged women who have children at their home. They have household responsibilities which they have to take care. Yet they come out very enthusiastically. They go through all the rigor that we put them through. They go through yogas. They enjoy the sessions of yoga. They enjoy the session of meditation, prayer, all of these. And then they work hard really to acquire the sales and marketing skills, the packaging skills, all of these. And they conceptualize business and run this business. Responsible businesses are really difficult to establish, but there is a tremendous amount of satisfaction. Profit is difficult to be seen because you are investing into new processes, new systems, which are more sensitive to the people as well as the planet. There is a cost. For everything, there is a cost. So if we can postpone that greed for the profit and then focus on being sensitive to women as well as to the planet, there is a substantial change that we can bring about in the world. All these years, we have seen women, the typical image. Now what they have done is, now if you go to a supermarket and purchase tur dal, it is basically dal which is completely polished. They will be uniformly colored and it will be polished and very nice to pick up. Right? This is how the modern retailing has been brainwashing the consumer, saying that unless it is very polished, very neatly put, that is what is considered to be the high quality product. But a simple of native sense, if you understand, when you consume dal with a little bit of chilka, fiber content is be higher, nutrition is better, right? The taste will also be better because when the chilka is there, the skin is there, it is protecting your dal, right? So this is known to everybody, but people get carried away with what is being supplied. So we have asked the women to use a traditional process of dal processing, where the nutrients are preserved.
Namaste, viewers, and welcome to another episode of Indic Talks by the Center for Indic Studies. Today, we talk about how we create enterprises and businesses that are sensitive to people and the planet. Responsible businesses do have different forms and names: fair trade, cooperative businesses, inclusive enterprises, not for profits, development enterprises, green enterprises, impact and social enterprises. Are there any examples of for the same that have been successful? Even if one creates the same, how difficult is it to sustain them? To answer these pertinent questions, we have our speaker today, GV Krishnagopal ji, co-founder and group CEO at Access Livelihoods. He is passionate about working with the economically marginalized, especially women, in their efforts to transform their lives and be self-reliant. A serial entrepreneur with over 24 years of experience. I welcome you, sir, and I request you to take over from here.
Thanks, Ojasvi. Keep this guide, except that I'm also qualified as a management graduate and from Institute of Rural Management at Anand. That will become relevant because as we talk about business and business enterprises, we need to definitely understand from what kind of background do I come. At my graduation level, I did dairy and dairy technology as a BTech. So largely, when I worked with women, I have worked with enterprises like dairy enterprises and agro enterprises, helping them set up dairy and agro enterprises. And that's the reason is I come from that kind of a background. Now, I just have picked up few samples to understand this concept of responsible business a little bit more. Most of us buy water bottles, and definitely this is a big business. Now, usually what visible is that you are thirsty and there are many issues in this, and one can actually look at the kind of standards that are to be there, and most a lay person who's a consumer would not be aware of or neither be able to understand how do we go about measuring all of this. Things like parts per million in terms of mineral content that is available is a very critical factor. Now, when we drink normally water from outside, your thirst really gets quenched. But when you drink packaged water, you generally have a feeling that you would like to drink more and more of that water. Primarily because the mineral content that is maintained within these water is much lower, and sometimes the standards are not met. I'm not talking about Bisleri in particular, but there are issues. So just to give one example, there is an international study done by Forbes and this one, and they figured out that the plastic particle content in water, mineral water, is substantially higher than whatever average that are standards that have to be maintained. Now, that microplastics are found in 93% of the bottled water, and this is harmful, is known, but we continue to use plastic containers, but we continue with it. Now, this is one example. The second example is, if you look at chips, a popular brand like this, there are certain qualities that you expect. But if you just look at the pack size itself, usually it will contain around 20 grams or 30 grams. The grams are also different, but the pack size will look like as though it is a 500-gram pack. And now there is a logic for that, because air content has to be maintained in order to keep it inert and then the quality of the product properly. But the customer, a lay customer, is not aware about all these aspects. They will look at crispiness, ingredients. To some extent, some people will notice what is the kind of ingredients and what is the kind of packaging material that has been there. But most people will look at crispiness, quality. Of course, the brand name is very good, and they would go about purchasing it. The same is the case with any fruit juices which are packaged. Hardly few people will notice what is the sugar content that is available, because that's a critical factor, because it increases your thirst levels and is also going to this one, and preservatives that are used in preparing all this particular thing. So how is a responsible business different? These are factors. Any consumer product would have all these kind of factors, and a responsible business is one that has a positive impact on the society and the environment in which it operates. Now, there are a multitude of aspects in this, and things like governance, accountability, production systems, consumption system, leadership. Each of it has layers and layers of aspects which have to be looked at if you are serious about creating a responsible business. And this is what we have discovered in the last 25 years in our journey, that once you say that you are taking a particular pathway, then there are many things that has to be reimagined, because the system is fine-tuned to certain things. System is fine-tuned to profit maximization. System is fine-tuned to, it is normal or routine to seek, favors for, licenses and permissions, which should happen on a natural basis. So system is used to certain particular practices. And the moment you say that you are a responsible business, you are trying to, question each and every aspect. And the moment you question so many aspects, then there are going to be multiple challenges that comes out. When we started working out, we were not aware about it. We just had the passion and the idea that we want to create responsible businesses, help women to progress in their work, and we just started doing work. But it's the last 20 years has had sufficient challenges, to the extent that sometimes we are forced to face huge losses. And generally, we think that when we work with women and with the concern with women, women will be more responsible. But sometimes even the women who are part of this entire network also are not responsible. And therefore, there could be this one. So I will keep sharing some cases on how we have looked at all these aspects. And therefore, a responsible business has to look at all these 5 aspects. First, people. How do you make it more inclusive? How do you be reasonable in terms of norms of payments to them? How do you be giving a healthy work environment within which they can work? So all of these are critical aspects for a responsible business. Similarly, governance in terms of accountability, transparency that has to be maintained, policies, ethical ways in which you're trying to deal, and the standards that you're able to set up. The environment is much more critical right now because of the climate crisis and so many changes in this one. So both at the local level and the global level, there are quite a lot of concerns. And so how do you make your own business in net positive, that it does contribute to the overall planet, or does it deplete the planet, is the key question that has to be looked at. Within the marketplace, of course, the consumers do have certain experiences. They are sometimes shortcutted, and they do have a lot of complaints. There is a growing concern within the consumers regarding the food safety, that with which they are food safety and the kind of products and the quality that are being this one. And the community which is engaged in this business, how do they benefit? And the modern marketing, if you look at a modern marketing model, the modern marketing model is all about, if the production cost is around 30%, the 70% is spent on marketing cost, which includes AC showrooms, a lot of advertisements, getting cricketers and all these people to advertise and all of this. All of these, the consumer is ending up paying for the cost for it. So a 30 rupees product is sold at 100 rupees, primarily to meet only the glamour and the overall, aesthetics around which the sale is being done. So another classic example, and which has been in the memory, where Amul actually won the case, is that ice creams were sold both made up of milk fat as well as vegetable fat. And it wasn't clear until Amul went to the Supreme Court, and they had fought a case with Quality Walls and figured out that Quality Walls was actually selling frozen desserts which has vegetable oils. Now, for a consumer, taste is what is visible, but there are health aspects related to vegetable fats compared to milk fat, and there are also, more importantly, the aspect of what is the vegetable fat that is being used, and usually it is palm oil from which they extract the vegetable fat, and what is it. So the consumer isn't aware, and both are being sold as ice cream. Amul fought a case, and Quality Walls was then asked to declare that it is frozen desserts that are being sold. So all these aspects keep going on in the background, and then we understand that market has its own mechanisms to take care of these things. But if you were to keep aside the standards, if you were to keep aside the consumer, this one, but plainly as an entrepreneur, you want to be a responsible business entrepreneur, what is the kind of journey? And that's where Access Livelihoods comes into the picture. It's been in 2005 when we started, we had this simple vision saying that we need to create a world which works for everyone, where producers, consumers, investors, and entrepreneurs are able to make money. Typically, company structures encourage financial return for the investors as the most important factor. And there are sentiments running around it, whether it is the share market or any of those things. But if you were to create an alternate world where producers, consumers, entrepreneurs, and investors, all of them are benefiting and they do share the wealth equally, how do you go about it? And which is what we call it as responsible enterprises. And for this to happen, we have chosen to look at women-owned climate resilient enterprises, which are in handloom, weaving, agriculture, and allied sectors. The idea is by around 2032, 1 million women will be reached, and they would be transformed with the kind of business that we are able to do. We have worked with more than 100 partners and 500 projects across 26 states, and we have 19 offices and around 150 staff who are working on this particular cause. And it's taken 17 years to reach to whatever level. And if you go to any investor with this kind of a growth rate, compared to the kind of growth rates that the unicorns and many of these startups which are showing, people would laugh it off, and there isn't anything much to really be proud of. But I would say that the fact that we had explored responsible business is a road less traveled, and it has provided sufficient challenges to us in trying to reimagine the whole thing. In the US, we have something called as benefit corporations. Benefit corporations are structures where they have limited returns on capital. Therefore, deliberately, the investor is told upfront that you just don't come for profit maximization, and your investment is not done only because of that. But you should also be worried about the planet and the people. And they do get measured around what is the kind of contribution the planet and the people are getting. And that's how the benefit corporations are recognized, and investors are clear that they don't come with just single objective, which is the financial return, but they also come with multiple returns, which is financial, social, and environmental returns. Uh, in the lack of such a kind of structure in India, so we have evolved a complex structure where we use both not-for-profits and for-profit structures to work together to enable this. Now, this is a kind of a blended model where the not-for-profit structures and the for-profit structures work together. It's a unique case. There are very few not-for-profits which are experimenting with this kind of a thing, and we are one of them, because we realized that growth and scaling will happen only with the mainstream capital, which is the formal finance, which means that we have to access equity and debt, but we have to access equity and debt at our own terms, at the terms at which the women can afford and the cost of the capital, and yet run their business in a fair way so that the consumers are not taken a ride, neither the planet loses out. So we have evolved a very unique structure. Most of us are very well qualified, and we come from some of the best management institutes in the country. And therefore, we have evolved specialized entities for each of the service, like we extend financial services through a development finance for profit, marketing services through a for profit, and we provide several not-for-profits which co-work with it, and the services is given as a package to the women at the grassroots level. Now, we've been lucky in some ways because the government of India has backed us a long time, for a lot of time. In fact, in 2021, under the National Startups Award from the Ministry of Commerce and Industries, Honorable Minister Piyush Goyal ji had given us the Best Incubator Award in the country. And we also been, one of our co-founders is also recognized as one of the 75 women transforming India in 2022. And we've been lucky to have 5 ministries working with us. I am just stating this to say that while the work is very tough to travel, sometimes when we stick to our agenda and then are focused on the kind of work that we are trying to do, there are enough support, there is enough support even within the ecosystem to work. Now, central to this entire thing is evolving a brand which is a responsible one. Now, what we call this brand as Creo, and this is affordable, authentic, and women-owned. These are the 3 key terms that we are trying to do. Now, critically, all products that we want to bring out will be products which will be safe to the consumer. At the same time, it will, like I said earlier, as a marketing model, it will pass on the maximum benefit back to the woman as the this one. Now, what is the uniqueness of this brand? This is a brand which is connecting the producers and consumers directly. Now, this is possible. Earlier, we used to have something called as B2B and B2C, but which is business to business and business to consumer as the models. But what we are trying to promote with technology advancement is producers to consumer. And if you, why this is important, I can clearly establish this. This is basically that if you get into agri products, there is a lot of safety concerns, and people claim that it is organic produce, but generally it is not traceable. Whether it is really coming from a farm which is really curated, and whether there has been substantial change that has been made. Now, the last mile delivery of producers and consumers, social impact, we have a clear social impact because this is a business owned by rural women whose incomes are between 75,000 to 1 lakh. The products are produced without chemical inputs, so therefore, and there is a traceable supply chain. Now, how does one evolve this kind of supply chain? We'll look at a short video where we have developed a dairy enterprise which is owned by the women. In fact, it is first of its kind woman dairy enterprise, which has been developed in Mawal region. And I would request the video to be played now. So this kind of a model which we have seen is typically how a enterprise which is owned by women is promoted. This entire process, which has been photo documented, is taken us 3 to 3.5 years to build this dairy, mobilize women, train them. Now, so the conception is responsible in some ways because we are including women who are marginalized in the country. They get an opportunity to become entrepreneur. Second, it is creating a producer to consumer chain. Now, when you look at producer to consumer chain, you know very well that there is a direct connect between the producers and the consumers. Now, for building such a kind of a chain, there was a value addition infrastructure to be developed. So, I will mention 2 or 3 challenges where we got and how do we. So like any other business, dairy business, to establish dairy business, we require 17 permissions. It took us more than a year to get all these permissions done. And it's obviously concerned about how do we go about taking care, how do we get our permissions here. And it's very clear understanding that when you take 1 year, 1.5 year, your investment is locked during this time. And there is an interest cost, this is burgoying, and the dairy plant will obviously be in losses while in being in the construction, because that is the gestation period. And therefore, there is always a pressure to reduce the timeline of getting all these 17 permissions, and it has to be done in 2 to 3 months. Yet we have taken 1 year, because if you go by process and if you go by step, it does take so much of time and for permissions to be obtained in this particular business. The second instance where we have done is that we wanted women who are becoming entrepreneurs to invest into this entire game. Right at the beginning, they had agreed that they would systematically go through a savings model and then invest 5,000 rupees into this particular enterprise. But however, they reneged on their own promise, and then they were not willing to put in their own investments. So there was a tremendous amount of conflicts around it. Subsequently, it resulted into a well-functioning business in the first year, it had 7 crores of turnover. It created a net benefit of 40 lakhs to the communities. The brand was established, everything was functioning. But subsequently, because they didn't put in their own investments, they had cash flow issues. And because they had cash flow issues and it hit into the COVID time, the entire business model got affected. They got it into losses, and they had to shut down their enterprise. Now, they again have partnered with us, and we are trying to revive it. So establishing a responsible business is not so easy. And while it looks very rosy in terms of pictures that we have seen, it does take a substantial toll into this one. And within this, when we talk about fair trade terms, we're talking about 70% of consumer rupee going back to the producers. In the traditional model, as I said, usual businesses will give only 15 to 20% as the margin payment to the producer. But what we are trying to do is that we are eliminating intermediation and directly connecting to the consumer and helping the woman realize around 70%. So there are in this one, and the consumer products, as with increasing consciousness and the awareness, the urban consumers are ready to pay a slight premium, which is where we are getting. Now, to enable this, we have also financed it very uniquely. And it's a well-known fact that women, when they want to establish enterprises, that too greenfield enterprises, which require an investment of 7 to 8 crores, banks and formal financial institutions do not give, because it's a well-known fact that hardly 40% of women still have bank account in the country, 40 to 50% of them. And many of them don't have access to the loans, because the only asset they have, because most of the women are agriculture farmers, the only asset they have is land, and land is usually in the name of the men in the household. So they don't get access to loans. So we had to re-engineer a lot. In fact, we had to stake our own office as a collateral to enable these women to get a loan. So we had staked our own asset. And when the business shut down, actually, we have suffered an NPA as much as the producer company, which is run by the women, which has suffered to the NPA. So a lot of re-engineering had to be done. There had to be equity grants to be brought in, revolving grants had to be given, asset-based financing, lease financing had to be done. All of this has been done, and we have been able to, in the last few years, been able to mobilize around 56 crores by all of this, and helping more than 18,000 women to access entrepreneurship funds so that they can set up the enterprises. We have set up such kind of dairy and other enterprises across several households, 75,000 households across multiple states, and many of them have not been successful. Few of them has been tremendously successful, so much so that they have got the national awards and the state awards. Even there is an agri enterprise which has been recognized by Economic Times as one of the best. This one, there is a dairy enterprise which is now having 130 crore turnover. 21,000 women are owners and shareholders of that. Their incomes have multiplied by 4 times. They have been profitable for the last 18 years. So wonderful businesses have been set up, and there have been also setbacks and challenges in this entire process. And if you look at agri enterprises, we have established semi crossbred desi poultry. Now, typically poultry is has imported birds. The birds are not native to India. They have very high maintenance in terms of health requirements, where vaccines are used, several pharmaceuticals are used, and these get into the food chain of the human beings. And there has been a lot of concerns around the safety in which this one. So again, to reduce the usage of these pharmaceuticals and all those things, we have innovated on this crossbred desi poultry, which doesn't require any of these things. We got into bio inputs so that farmers can get help from this one, seeds and dairy enterprises. And for this to happen, we have been providing infrastructure, finance, and marketing support. So before we get into this one, I would like you to look at our model around handlooms, where handloom weavers. Now, if you typically go to the grassroots level, women are either engaged in artisanship or handlooms, or they are engaged in agriculture, because these are primary production sectors leading to food and clothing. And this is where 80% of women are employed. And large scale feminization has happened in these traditional sectors, primarily because of the fact that these are not remunerative sectors and these are traditional sectors. The men are able to migrate as their infrastructure has improved, and they're able to earn through that, whereas the women are not able to meet their own livelihood needs. So that's where we've started working with women weavers. So I would request the women weavers video to be shown.
I get a lot of compliments for my elegant and cool look these days. I'm totally in love with these colorful daily wear collections made from handloom material. And there are so many contemporary designs and price ranges for me to choose from.
We have been working with Chitrika for a long time, and I'm very proud of Chitrika as a brand and as the way weavers of Chitrika is able to translate our design sensibility in their fabric. They are very good with their times. Their commitment is very encouraging.
మా కంపెనీలో తయారైన ఉత్పత్తులన్నీ చిత్రికా బ్రాండ్ ద్వారా అమ్ముడుపోతాయి. కొన్ని కొత్త రకాల డిజైన్స్ని మేము ఉత్పత్తి చేస్తే దానికి తగ్గట్టుగా యూత్ కూడా తీసుకుంటారనే ఉద్దేశంతో కొత్త కొత్త డిజైన్స్ని మేము ఎంచుకుని మా వేవర్స్కి కూడా చూపించేవాళ్ళం. వాళ్ళు మనకి ఏదైతే మార్కెటింగ్లో ఎక్కువగా అందుబాటు అవుతుందో దాన్ని బట్టి మనం తయారు చేద్దామని మాకు కూడా వ్యూవర్స్ కూడా చాలా ఎంకరేజ్ చేసేవారు.
ఆర్డర్లు వచ్చినాయి కొన్ని రకాలు ఇచ్చారనుకోండి, ఆ రకాలు బట్టి మేము నేస్తామండి. నేస్తండి ఉన్న వాళ్ళు కొనుక్కున్న వాళ్ళకి ఇండి బాగున్నాయని అనుకుంటారండి. మళ్ళీ మళ్ళీ కొనుక్కోవాలని వాళ్ళకి అనిపిస్తుందండి. అందుకని మేము కష్టమైనా నేస్తామండి.
ఒక రూపాయి వృధా చేయకుండా ఉంటే ఆ రూపాయి మన కంపెనీకి సంపాదించినట్టుగా తీసుకుని ఒక్కొక్క సిస్టమ్స్ని ఇంప్లిమెంట్ చేయడం జరిగింది.
మొదట్లో మేము మాన్యువల్ డైయింగ్ అనేది చేయించే వాళ్ళము. ప్రజెంట్ క్యాబినెట్ డైయింగ్ చేయించడం జరుగుతుంది. దీనికంటే లేటెస్ట్గా చీజ్ డైయింగ్ అనేది ఎక్స్పెరిమెంటల్గా చేయడం జరిగింది. ఇక్కడికి వచ్చిన తర్వాత ఈ యార్న్ అనేది మల్టిపుల్ టెస్టులు చేయడం జరుగుతుంది. ఒకవేళ కలర్ అనేది షేడ్ అయినట్లయితే మేము మరలా దాన్ని రీడైయింగ్ కోసం పంపించడం జరుగుతుంది.
గోదావరి కంపెనీ వాళ్ళు చేరినప్పటి కాడి నుంచి పేక నూలు, పొడుగు నూలు మా కాళ్ళే తోడించి, ఇసిరించి, కట్టించి మాకు ఇంటికి తెచ్చి ఇస్తున్నారు.
మేము వేవర్ దగ్గరికి వెళ్తూ ఉంటాము. ప్రోడక్ట్లో ఏమైనా మిస్టేక్స్ ఉన్నాయా లేదా అనేది కరెక్షన్ చేస్తాము.
ప్రొడక్షన్ ఇన్ఛార్జి వేవర్స్ దగ్గర నుంచి మాకు క్వాలిటీ పరంగానే తెస్తారు. అయినా సరే మళ్ళీ మేము చెక్ చేస్తాం. లెంత్, విడ్త్ అండ్ బుటాస్ స్టెయిన్స్ ఏమైనా ఉన్నాయా, వీవింగ్ డిఫెక్ట్స్ ఏమైనా ఉన్నాయా అని మేము చెక్ చేస్తాను.
ఇప్పుడు మేము 14 ఊళ్ళలో పనిచేస్తున్నాం. ఇక్కడికి మా ఎంప్లాయీ వెళ్ళి ఒక సెల్ ఫోన్లో క్లిక్ చేస్తే ఆ ఇన్ఫర్మేషన్ అనేది ఒక సిస్టమ్కి వచ్చి అది మనకు తెలియడం జరుగుతుంది.
మాకు దాని మీదట 4 రోజులు కలిసి రావడంతో మాకు నేత కూడా ఎక్కువగా అవుతుంది. దాన్ని మళ్ళీ కొత్త కొత్త డిజైన్లు కూడా మేము ట్రైనింగ్ తీసుకోవడం జరుగుతుంది.
గతంలో మేము బయట నేసేవాళ్ళము. దానికన్నా ఈ కంపెనీలో నేయడం వల్ల మాకు ఆదాయం బాగా పెరిగిందండి. మాకు ఇలా ఆదాయం పెరగడం వల్ల ఇల్లు కట్టుకోవాలని, పిల్లల్ని బాగా చదివించుకోవాలని ఆశిస్తున్నామండి.
ఇంతకుముందు నేను ఇంట్లోనే ఉండేదాన్ని. ఈ కంపెనీ మొదలుపెట్టినప్పటి నుంచి రిస్క్ ఎలా తీసుకోవాలి, స్టాఫ్తో ఎలా పని చేయించుకోవాలి, వేవర్స్ని ఎలాగా మోడలైజ్ చేసి వాటిని ఆర్డర్స్ని తొందరగా పూర్తి చేసి పంపించాలి అనే విధంగా అన్ని నేర్చుకున్నాను.
The best part, I'm clear on my conscience that I'm doing my bit for the environment.
Weaving sector is not organized in India, but I think Chitrika is transcending that space.
So typically this kind of a business where you can see the transformation that the women have experienced, where traditionally weaving business, even though it provides large scale employment, if you look at national survey, surveys, you will see that women are getting anywhere between 75,000 to 1 lakh rupees per annum as income. Whereas people who are working in these companies which are owned by themselves, they are earning anywhere between 2.5 lakh to 3 lakhs, which is 3 times the national average in terms of this one. Yeah, so basically weaving women are realizing 3 times their income. They have been profitable for the last 16 years, yet they struggle to get formal finance so as to grow their own enterprise. So with all these struggles, first thing is technology has to be superior. If you have to compete with mill-made cloth, where the cost of cloth is substantially low, but at the same time, mill-made cloth has a lot of negative externalities in terms of environment, because these are products which are produced from petroleum byproducts. They are converted into yarns, and nylon and all these yarns are mixed. First, the cloth is not breathable. Secondly, it has substantial negative impacts because petroleum extraction is done, and subsequently, obviously, the carbon footprint it generates is different. Whereas handlooms is much more eco-friendly. It is locally produced and produced by women, and 70% of what the consumer pays goes back to the women. So setting up such a kind of enterprise means that we have to establish traceability, because we have to continue to maintain authenticity. We just can't simply claim that power loom based production is as handlooms. We have to differentiate. We have to help the consumer realize what is this one. And for all of these, technology investments are very critical, and it has taken a substantial amount of time. And we are proud to state that the ERP that we have created for the handlooms where there are 12 to 15 process steps. Each of these processes has been monitored through ERP, and Weaver is advised on designs sitting in Hyderabad into rural areas where on-loom monitoring is also done so that quality assurance process is maintained. So all of these has been possible over a period of time through investment. But getting this and assembling this entire supply chain based solution is a very tough task, and it has been very challenging to get this entire thing going. Now, to make all this happen, it's important that we actually help women go through structured education programs so that their managerial skills really get honed to manage these large scale businesses. Central to this idea is, first thing is, higher education is not accessible to women because most women are 8th standard fail. They when it comes to a rural household, it generally the preference is given to the male to get study. But how do then women get access? So if they're 8th standard fail and if they're expected to manage these kind of rural businesses, how do they go about managing it? So that's when we conceptualize saying that we should not have graduation as a qualification to get managerial education. Managerial education is very critical when they want to go for entrepreneurship. And therefore, we created that an integrated learning model, which is where you just simply don't focus on accounts, finance, marketing, and all of this. But along with that, 50% of the time is focused on how do we actually build a soul which is value-oriented, which is purposeful in terms of the living, which overcomes the underconfidence that they have and the kind of discrimination that they go through. So how do you create such a kind of a soul? How do you create a mindset which is long-term oriented, which is not looking at quick profiteering, but is also conscious about people and planet? So all of this is a new age curriculum that we have created, which is a practice oriented, this one. Rural women may not be literate, but they may be semi-literate because they pass out by the 8th standard. But they are carrying a lot of native wisdom which has come through practice. And recognizing that wisdom and building on that, that's how we have created a mini MBA, which is 9 months. IIT Mumbai evaluates this, and Tata Institute of Social Sciences, as well as Manage, which is an agribusiness institute which Government of India runs, certifies this course. And nearly 800 women have gone through this mini MBA, which is a 9-month program, which is a practice-oriented program. Now, how does this program work? We have a video, and I think we have time for that video. It's going to run into 4 minutes.
Yes,
We'll just
sir.
show that
Yes,
video,
sir.
and then we can end with that. When we picturized our ambition, we figured out that we want to create the next Amul in the country. And this time when we create the Amul, it has to be owned by 1 million women. Therefore, we created a program which nurtures not just the skills part, but also the heart and the soul. In a way, we could actually conceptualize a very unique program, which is based on 4 pillars. The 4 pillars being self-transformation, mindset development, skill set development, and creating excellence within the enterprises.
महिला उद्योजक विकास कार्यक्रम याच्यामध्ये आमच्याकडे बहुत सारे असे कामं होऊ शकतात, पण असं एक महिला आपण गावातून उभे होऊन ते ट्रेनिंग अगर घेतला, व्यवसायामध्ये प्रॉफिट झाला, त्यांचा कुटुंब चांगला राहू शकते, हे आम्ही विचार करून आपण हे ट्रेनिंग घेण्याचे निश्चित केलं आहे. ट्रेनिंगमध्ये आम्हाला पहिला अगोदर व्हिडिओ दाखवला, आपण का करू शकतो. अगोदर इंटरव्ह्यू घेतला, इंटरव्ह्यू घेऊन त्याने बिझनेस प्लॅन सुद्धा दिला 500 रुपये, आणि आम्ही बिझनेस प्लॅन केल्यावर मग ते इंटरव्ह्यू झाल्यावर मग ते आम्हाला ते सिलेक्ट झाले आहे.
మా దారేంటి, మా పరిస్థితి ఏంటి, మేము ఇలాగే ఉండిపోవాలా అనే ఆలోచనతోన మేము దీంట్లో చేరి ఏదన్నా సాధించాలి, ఏమన్నా చేయాలన్న పట్టుదలతో దీంట్లోకి రావడం జరిగింది. ఐకియా కూడా వెళ్ళడం జరిగింది. చూసి సంతోషించే ఛాయిస్ కూడా అక్కడ దొరికింది. మిగతావి ఏదో కొబ్బరి చిప్పలు, ముక్కలు అవన్నీ పాడేస్తున్నాము. ఆ వేస్ట్ అని మేము పాడేసిన వీళ్ళు ఇంత మంచిగా సెట్ చేసుకొని ఇట్లా సేల్ చేస్తున్నారు కదా, ఇవి కూడా ఇట్లా చేసుకోవచ్చు అని అక్కడ చూసిన తర్వాత తెలుసుకున్నాము. पोल्ट्री फार्ममध्ये जसं आम्ही गेला तर कमी जागेमध्ये ते उत्पन्न काढून राहिले आहेत.
आणि ते पाहूनच एकदमच आपल्याला हे चांगले काम होईल असं मनात वाटून ते चांगलं वाटलं करून काम. याच्यामध्ये असं एवढं फायदा होत आहे की शेअरिंग सर्कलमध्ये एकामेकाच्या दुःख आणि एकामेकाच्या सुख आणि एक सपोर्ट आहो आम्ही सगळे पीसीचे, त्यांचा अनुभव येत आहे.
యోగా క్లాస్ సార్ చెప్పిండు ఫస్ట్ ఏదన్నా బాగు చేయాలంటే తను కరెక్ట్ ఉండాలి. తను కుటుంబాన్ని సరిదిద్దగలిగితే ప్రపంచాన్ని కూడా ఆడపిల్ల సరిదిద్దగలుగుతుందని సారు యోగా చేసేటప్పుడు కొన్ని ముఖ్యమైన అంశాలు చెప్పేవారు.
महिला औद्योगिक विकास कार्यक्रम आहे. ते कार्यक्रमामध्ये छोटे छोटे आपण व्यवसाय करून किंवा हातसडीचे तांदूळ, सेंद्रिय शेती हे सगळं आमच्या ट्रेनिंगमध्ये शिकवलेलं आहे. ते फार्म आम्ही सर्वे केला आहे आणि सर्वे फार्ममधून आपण जसं त्यांना मेंबरला आणि पीसीला जसं आपण ते जास्त होलसेल जास्त माल आणला तर आपल्या पीसीला सुद्धा प्रॉफिट येणार आहे आणि मेंबरला सुद्धा महिन्याचे अगर त्यांना 800-700 किराणा सामान घेतला 150 पर्यंत त्यांचे बचत सुद्धा होऊ शकते.
మాకు ఇక్కడ మార్కెటింగ్, ఫైనాన్స్, మేనేజ్మెంట్ గురించి క్లాస్ సార్ వాళ్ళు చెప్పడం జరిగింది. రొట్టెల గురించి చెప్పడం జరిగింది ఒకరోజు క్లాస్ అంతా. అక్కడ మేము ఆడపిల్లలం ఎక్కువ చేసే వర్క్ కాబట్టి దాంట్లో కూడా ఎంత లాభాలు ఉన్నాయి, ఒక పెద్ద బిజినెసే ఉందని ఆ క్లాస్ చెప్పడం వల్ల, సార్ చెప్పడం వల్ల తెలుసుకోవడం జరిగింది.
The idea is that when these 100 women pass out, they will really be able to manage the complex business transactions that are going to be there in these enterprises.
आपला ते विकास करणेच आहे, पण प्रत्येक जे पीसी मेंबर आहे त्यांचा विकास झाला पाहिजे हे आमचं ध्येय आहे आणि ते होईल तेव्हाच हे आमची जे काही आमची पिढी आहे मागची ते पिढी सुखी राहू शकणार आहे.
Essentially, so this is how it is. We work in agriculture and weaving sectors with so many challenges, especially for the women when they find difficult to access finance, difficult to access infrastructure, technology, even education in terms of higher education, management education, because if they have to manage enterprises of this scale, which are running into crores, they really have to invest into their own education, acquire the skills which are required for managing these kind of enterprises. They are willing to do it. They are enthusiastic. These are women who are middle-aged women who have children at their home. They have household responsibilities which they have to take care. Yet they come out very enthusiastically. They go through all the rigor that we put them through. They go through yogas. They enjoy the sessions of yoga. They enjoy the session of meditation, prayer, all of these. And then they work hard really to acquire the sales and marketing skills, the packaging skills, all of these. And they conceptualize business and run this business. Responsible businesses are really difficult to establish, but there is a tremendous amount of satisfaction. Profit is difficult to be seen because you are investing into new processes, new systems, which are more sensitive to the people as well as the planet. There is a cost for everything. There is a cost. So if we can postpone that greed for the profit and then focus on being sensitive to women as well as to the planet, there is a substantial change that we can bring about in the world. And we've been stuck with this agenda, and we have faced several challenges, but we've still continued to grow, largely because of the strength and enthusiasm which the women themselves are demonstrating. They are actually giving us the inspiration and the energy to go around. And that's how we've established a responsible business. I'll be happy to take questions now.
Like I was saying, sir, thank you for that very insightful talk into what Access Livelihoods is doing for the marginalized communities of India. There's a question, especially coming from the video and the slide, that it seems that most cooperatives or self-help groups, they're very much concentrated in the Deccan. It was very apparent in the videos as well, with women mostly being from Maharashtra and other setups also being in Telangana and Andhra. So it seems that cooperatives seem to work in the Deccan, but not in the heart of the Hindi belt per se. So the reason why the Hindi belt is being compared is because it's a lot more abundant in resources. So why do you think that cooperatives have not picked up there?
I don't see that as a reason. For example, we have always had these questions in agriculture as well as in weaving. People say it is a dying sector. It is non-remunerative. It is not going to really benefit the communities. So, and there is also this economic term that is used, that there is disguised labor. Therefore, there is more labor. People should move out of agriculture and all of this. They say like that. But what we have shown is that when you reimagine the way the production systems are done, you become sensitive to the way. So both handlooms as well as organic agriculture, they are very sensitive to the environment. So chemical inputs are reduced. There is a natural process around which you build. The organic dyes are used, natural dyes are used, chemical dyes are eliminated. So all of these processes is actually contributing to the better environment and climate resilience. Now, one can say that traditional sectors are not worthwhile working around, but we have shown that it is possible to work. Similarly, when we compare the north and the south, there is of course, there is the self-help group movement actually originated in the southern India, in Karnataka and Andhra, Telangana, where the large number of self-help groups were created, and therefore that became a base. And women got an opportunity for the first time to borrow from the formal banks. This they use wisely, because generally you see that the women tend to plan the budgets better, and they wisely use it for their own family's betterment. Now, in most of these cases, the groups have matured, and after 10 years, they are now able to borrow anywhere between 50,000 to 1 lakh, which is useful to be invested into a productive enterprise. So there is definitely an edge. But after the National Rural Livelihoods Mission, I think the self-help group movements has spread across the country. Now it's more than 8 to 9 years or 10 years since National Rural Livelihood Mission has been operational. There are millions of groups. Today, the SHG credit itself has grown to substantial, more than 1 lakh crores that goes through the banks, the system. So it's not that the north is quite far away, but there is an early stage that is built up in the southern world. But I would also bring on one more aspect. One aspect is that cooperatives which have been seen all these years, and they have a negative image because, like the agriculture and this one primary production sectors, cooperatives are also seen as failed sector, because it's largely run by the government, and the equity is also invested by the government. And in government sector, we know that public sector, the cooperatives are not profitably running. They are not efficient in this one. But the moment you take it out from the government and put it into the hands of the this one, this is what the producer company architecture does. The government control is not there. Government investments doesn't come. Women put in their own money, and they are liberal. They manage it themselves. They take the profit or loss. When they are made responsible for this, they start doing the business in a very responsible way. We have found tremendous results coming in. So whatever negative image are there, that cooperatives are not successful and they are primarily only successful in South, these are not the fact, because the fact is that government has, in its own historical reason, there are historical reasons. I'm not totally criticizing government, but there are historical reasons. India, when it got freedom, the literacy levels were very low, and they cannot manage cooperative business by themselves. So the government, as a welfare state, started in managing the business by itself. Now, when the scenario has changed and where they have tried to liberalize the cooperative law, women are taking this opportunity and platform, and they can create. So whether it is in north or south, we can create cooperative companies, enterprises which are profitable. But where are these incubators, and where are these people who are ready to invest into this process? There are very few. That's probably the reason why we got the award, national award for the incubator. There aren't any incubators which are willing to trust women and work on incubating producer companies which are owned by women. So if that can be addressed, probably there will be a growth and flourish in cooperatives even in the northern India.
So, by your assessment in terms of parameters like literacy, resources, and incubation, which will, I'm pretty sure, Access Livelihoods will extend its wings in the north as well. Which states do you think in the north are ready for such a change, or ready for that initial base making for an SHG to work?
So of late, we have seen that Bihar and Uttar Pradesh are doing pretty well. Bihar, because they were one of the few early states like MP and Rajasthan, which had picked up the self-help group movement. They in fact borrowed resources from World Bank, all these three states, Rajasthan, MP and Bihar, and they started the self-help group movement and the producer companies movement at the grassroots level. But unfortunately, when Rajasthan and MP took up the producer company movement, they again kept aside women and they started working with the men. Whereas in Bihar, when the self-help group movement flourished, they continued to work with women. So, and simultaneously now in Uttar Pradesh, you can see that large number of self-help groups are also coming up there. So there is a base that is getting created in Rajasthan, Madhya Pradesh, UP and Bihar, where substantial amount of these kind of producer companies will come. And we are also looking forward for opportunities to work in those places. See, all these years, we have seen women, the typical image. If you talk to a not-for-profit, the typical woman image of a woman is who are discriminated, they are powerless, they are weak, they need to be supported, and when you picturize women like that, then what can only come is sympathy. But if you really want to trust their abilities and the native wisdom that they carry, then you have to see women as hardworking people, people who are working day and night. If you look at a typical rural woman, her life starts at 4 o'clock or 5 o'clock. She will prepare food, then she would actually food the family, go to the farm, do a little bit of work, come back and look after the dairy animals, again then take a little bit of rest, again in the evening take care of their children, go back to the farm, take care of this one. So they are busy throughout the day, and they are doing a lot of productive contribution. This is not recognized. As long as you keep portraying that they are weak, they're marginalized, they're this one. But at the same time, it's the question like the half-filled glass. Which part of the woman you want to see? Do you want to see what is filled and what is the strength of the woman and the wisdom that they carry? And therefore, if you want to see from that side, then you can build enterprises. But if you always see the unfilled part, then there is a possibility that you will never trust women and you will always feel sympathetic but will not do anything systematic to develop enterprises which women can manage and really flourish. I think that is the attitudinal shift that is required towards the way in the vision that we have with the women and the way we are trying to work with the women.
So apart from Amul, we've seen a lot of dairy product companies come up, especially startups like Anveshan or Country Delight or Doodhwala. Even Kevin Tears has opened up its agro products. So, according to your incubator's assessment, why do you think milk is still something that has not been overdone as a sector and can see profits? Because it seems to be a general consensus that this seems to be a place where people can make money. So what has been the incubator's assessment as to why Creo would be a good idea?
So let's see. Let's say Amul. First thing I want to clarify that even Amul has hardly 5% women as members. It's run by men, right? Of course, it's farmers cooperative and it is beneficial to the farmers. It has a transformative journey throughout this one, and it is a national symbol. We are all proud about this and really transform the sector. But when it comes to benefiting the women, it still doesn't have the substantial number of women members. And unfortunately, dairying is a sector which is largely run by women. Animal management within the household is always done by the women, right? Now, having said that, the entire dairy sector has been built from the scratch by Amul and its sister concerns under the National Dairy Development Board in the Operation Flood. Between 79 and 95, National Dairy Development Board, which is a board created by the Government of India and was managed by Dr. Verghese Kurian, who was also the chairperson of the Institute of Rural Management, my own alma mater, had conceptualized Operation Flood, under which around 186 district federations were created. Now, one can say that largely agri sector and dairy sector is unorganized sector. And milk as an exception because of National Dairy Development's effort and creating dairy cooperatives. Between 79 and 2000, the dairy is the only sector where the organized business has come to around 30%. Once the initial development incubation has been done by the National Dairy Development Board, the private sector got into this one. I remember the times in 80s and 90s when we never used to have even dairy equipment manufacturers. So even if you want to set up a dairy, you wouldn't have equipment manufacturer, you have to import the equipment. Today, it is not the same scenario. Because of the National Dairy Development's Operation Flood effort and organizing more than 4 million farmers across the country, the sector has become more organized. And the fundamental technological differences which has been brought in by the Operation Flood, one is that buffalo milk can be converted into into powder. For the first time in the world, it was done in India. Secondly, milk quality testing at household level can be done. Now, when you are procuring any agriculture commodity or dairy, you have to test quality at the household level, so as to ensure that the entire value chain is up to the mark. Now, that entire specialized milk testing equipment was created as a technological solution through the Operation Flood. So, this kind of public money has been spent to create an infrastructure, both in terms of technology as well as in terms of cracking the model and organizing this model. That's the reason why dairy has flourished and it has become more organized. Like, it is the only commodity where you have 35% to 40% into this one, organized sector. Having said this, and that's the reason why today the private sector is also able to flourish in this entire frame, that after the government has worked around creating infrastructure, now the private sector is piggy riding on that and it's getting organized. No issue. That's how the development happens anywhere. Like, infrastructure has to be created by the government and subsequently businesses grow around it. Now, why is it growing more than this? Why is it 60% of the business, even in the dairy industry, continues to be in the unorganized sector? Now, the consumer has an answer. The organized dairy sector gives you milk which is 3 days to 4 days old, because milk is collected in 700 kilometers, processed and brought to your house. Whereas the unorganized sector procures milk within 30-kilometer radius and delivers you fresh milk early in the morning to you as a consumer. So the consumer is able to find out the difference between an organized supplier and an unorganized supplier. Even till date, 60% of the market, and even in urban areas where the access to all these technological tools, this one and everything is there, the vendor is able to beat the business of the organized sector, because primarily they are able to offer freshness. Secondly, they are able to offer traceability, because they know that from which farm it is coming, and they feel it is much more safer. Even if you have a reliable supplier, you can actually take care of even adulteration. So once you have that kind of an established relation, consumer has, then they are ready to trust this kind of an unorganized sector. Now, unless the organized sector comes with a solution, and that's where our dairy, the dairy that we are showing, Creo is shown, we have conceptualized a business where we procure milk within 30 kilometers and sell milk within 60 kilometers. So, in fact, what we are committing is that we will deliver milk within 12 hours from farm to the consumer, which most of the organized sector dairies cannot really promise, because they are not organized in such way. They are organized where they collect 700 kilometers from 700 kilometers and deliver it in this one. So there is a substantial change in the model. Then we also have cost advantages, because women are managing the entire business of us, and it's not professionals who come from big institutes who manage it. So obviously our HR cost also will be lower. So there are distinct advantages which we are working on. And as and when we are more moving towards organic milk production and all those things, we will see that their consumer acceptance will also be very high once we create a traceable supply chain.
A viewer has a question for you, sir. They've asked, how does Access Livelihoods make its money, and where does it get its money from?
So as we said, we are a blended organization. So there are a lot of CSR money and the donor money, foundations money which come in, which helps us to build women's capability and competency through education programs, trainings, and all those things. All of this is done through the grant resources. And then we have the for-profit entities which are able to access credit from the formal financial institutions, and we provide collaterals, guarantees and all, so that the women can access the business. So for providing all these guarantees and collaterals, we do charge a fee for it from the women. We also charge, the brand is owned by the women, but therefore to establish the brand and to manage these operations, we charge a commission onto the women. All of these is the revenue source for us. It is the interest arbitrage and guarantee cost. It is the market commissions and the grant resources which are there, which we access from the foundation, which acts as a revenues for us.
So talking about women cooperatives, there's a huge demand in the Indian market for Indian snacks and Indian drinks, which is precisely why products like Diet Coke and Diet Pepsi are not able to work, because whenever an Indian thinks about a diet drink, it's mostly coconut water or jaljeera, whatever.
Yes.
So that is also a very viable business option. Have you seen there being more takers within the women who want to explore these business ideas? I think one of your videos talked about roti making as well.
Yes. So clearly the edge that we will have, and which we want women to this one, is when we are getting to ready to eat and ready to cook kind of material, freshness becomes very critical. You can't have frozen food which is 6 months old, 5 months old, transported from Australia, US, or anything which can compete with. And we have an advantage that we are local producers. We know what is a local taste, and women who come from this background, they are also capable and understand. They have been traditionally been responsible for cooking and then delivering this. So we will definitely use this advantage. And as you mentioned, all the Indian drinks on traditional sweets, these are going to be areas where our product portfolio is going to grow, and we're going to supply that. Even pickles which come from with a native taste, these are also going to be the places where we are going to come with products. So in fact, we've recently started there is a red gram growing area, which is the tur dal, where we organize the women, 3,000 women. They have purchased their own land now. And around 600 of them have actually transited and become fully organic tur dal producers now. They don't use any chemical inputs. It's fully traceable, and one can visit and see with bio inputs. Now what they've done is, now if you go to a supermarket and purchase tur dal, it is basically dal which is completely polished. They will be uniformly colored, and it will be polished and very nice to pick up. Right? This is how the modern retailing has been brainwashing the consumer, saying that unless it is very polished, very neatly put, that is what is considered to be the high quality product. But a simple of native sense, if you understand, when you consume dal with a little bit of chilka, fiber content is be higher, nutrition is better. Right, the taste will also be better, because when the chilka is there, the skin is there, it is protecting your dal, right? So this is known to everybody, but people get carried away with what is being supplied. So we have asked the women to use a traditional process of dal processing, where the nutrients are preserved, and we've launched this product and sold on a pilot basis. There is a tremendous response to this. Women are recognizing, urban women are recognizing the quality, the nutritional quality. So therefore we will bring back all these traditional practices which are there, the traditional way of processing and the Indianness, and then we will see that the women are able to compete and create a brand, something like Amul, which will stand for their identity. So that's the whole idea of Creo.
So the last question is, how is cattle treatment in Creo, or the ones that has been incubated, is different from the cattle treatment you see with other leading brands?
So there is a lot more to be done. I can't say that we have fully succeeded or if we have fully reached to that level where we can confidently say, as we are speaking in organic agriculture, I can't say that we have gotten the natural processes fully into the dairy sector. We are in work in progress there, but a lot more can be done. For example, I can give you a simple thing. The commercial sector sees the animal as a machine. So they have measured something called as intercalving period, which is a dry period, right? One calf has been delivered, then they are in the milking, and then the next calf, before the next calf is conceived, the pregnancy is conceived. Now, typically this is measured, right? 3 months, 4 months, 5 months, they measure. So the commercial guys ensure that as the intercalving period should be as less as possible. Now, the animal is put through a cycle of pregnancy every year by reducing the intercalving period. Now, you imagine what will be the kind of animal condition where every year you are pregnant and you are delivering a baby, and then again you are getting into breast one. What is the kind of effort that will be there? So the traditional measures which are evolved from the industrial production systems do not fit for the organic agriculture production systems, and we have to evolve new measures. And educating farmers, it's like reverse educating, because all through now we have educated the women, and everybody saying that you reduce the intercalving period, you try and see how much more productivity will come. So because the animal has to get more milk with greater fat, you give high fat food. But is it good for the health of the animal? Let's say if you and I consume high fat food, what will happen to us? So these are all not the considerations. So there are a lot more to be done in this entire dairy sector. I can't say that we have gone through this entire process fully, but we are making baby steps towards it. But we are conscious about it, and we would like to educate, and it's going to take substantial time. That's why I'm saying the conception of responsible business is easy, but to make it happen in the ground, it is going to take decades of efforts. And we found it very tough to really crack this entire model and get to this kind of level, even to the level where we are able to speak about our own businesses.
Thank you very much, sir. This concludes the question and answer session and the session as well. We wish to have more such talks with you on such important topics of business, enterprise, and management. Thank you. Namaste.
Thank you. Thank you. Namaste.